Okay. All right. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Parshat Metzora 5782. Today's class is sponsored anonymously. And thank you very much to the sponsor. It should be good for the sponsor and for all of us. Learning Torah together should only bring good news, peace, and health, and good things to everybody. The Parsha is usually learned together with Tazria, which deals with the laws of the details of becoming somebody who gets tzara'at, which is usually translated as a skin disease, leprosy, or something like it. And in this week's parsha, we get the details, the lessons, and we'll learn some of the lessons from the details of how to become purified from this tzara'at. Somebody who is becoming somebody who is no longer or has tzara'at and wants to become purified of it is somebody called a Metzora. Mem in front of a word in Hebrew means from. So he is from tzara'at, right? So he's a Metzora. He's or she actually. Men and women can both get tzara'at, and either one of them would have to go through this whole process, this whole purification ceremony, and we'll get into the details of what exactly that ceremony was, and we'll, God willing, have an opportunity to learn some lessons from these things. Hopefully, something that we'll be able to take home with us. Speaking of home, that's one of the other parts of the parsha is tzara'at of the home. So a skin affliction of the house, which is a strange thing, obviously. There's one thing with mold or moss growing on your walls, but it's changing color. It's green, it's red, or worse, you take it apart and it comes back. Right? You literally took off the bricks and all the surrounding bricks of this infected area, and you put in brand new bricks, and all of a sudden, in the exact same spot, this appears again. So that's another sign of tzara'at. And we'll get a chance, God willing, to speak about some of these. And then the rest of the parsha deals with the tuma and tahara of different kinds of other that's the purification and the uncleanliness, or however you translate tuma, of three other categories of people: a zav, a balkari, and then four other categories: a nida and a zava. Well, zav and the zava are pretty much the same thing. It's a male or female who have just to say it as lightly as possible, the medical condition it's nowadays called gonorrhea, which includes a certain liquid dripping from the private area. So that not semen, so something else, and so that would cause somebody to be a zav or zava, and usually Chazal, the rabbis in general, consider somebody who's a zav or zava to have basically caused this upon themselves by thinking too much about sexuality and things like that, thinking about sex too much, etc. Balkari is similar, but that's actual semen. And then there's the nida, as we know, is a woman who is going through her cycle. She also becomes tameh. And we've said before, and we should say it again, it's not a bad thing to be tameh necessarily. Tuma isn't something that's they're unclean, they're unmentionable, they're taboo, whatever else. That's not the idea of this tuma. Tuma is just a state that somebody's in because they're somehow connected to death, right? Obviously, a nida is somebody who's going through the menstrual cycle. It's because she's not pregnant that she's becoming a nida. So there's some concept of not bringing life, or the opposite of life is obviously death. There's some touch of death in this situation, and therefore she becomes impure. But one of the beautiful things about all of these impurities is that there's a way to become purified. There is a process that you can go through, and then these tumas are temporary, which is a beautiful thing. Right? It's not like, oh, I'm a nida. I was once a nida, so I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never smart enough. There's no thought like that. A nida is, as you know, is a very temporary thing, and then you go to the mikvah and you're perfectly tahor, and you can do all of the things you could do before, and that's one of the great things about tuma and tahara. Now, so that's really the focus of the parsha. I think it's very meaningful that we're reading the parsha now in Pesach time, when part of the avoda, part of what we're doing is cleaning, right? And it's not just the physical cleaning of a house. We're supposed to think about how to clean our lives, how to be more sensitive to the concepts of spiritual and physical purity. So that's all in the parsha, and so that's very, very wide view. And let's now go into a more narrow view. Before we do, however, I think it would be very helpful to go through the basically 11 steps of the purification process. Now, the parsha goes into it. There's many psukim detailing this, but I just want to just so we have, what's the best way to say this? Just so it's easier for us to sort of comprehend, I want you to be able to picture this process. We're going to be learning like the details of why and what it means, perhaps, whatever, but where the actual process is going to be important. So first of all, somebody, like as we learned last week, the Kohen came over and somebody thought they had this tuma of tsarat, this impurity of, let's say, leprosy. They had some sort of discoloration or some sort of bump or something on their skin. So they go to a Kohen, the Kohen sees it, and let's say the Kohen says, yeah, you're right. You are tameh, you're impure, you have to be you have tsarat. So God forbid, in that sort of situation, the person has to go through several things. We talked about this last week. They have to go sit badad. They have to sit alone from everybody else. They have to not eat tahor foods, etc., etc. Now, and this is for 7 days. Now the Kohen comes back after 7 days and sees this bump or discoloration again, and so the Kohen says, "Oh, sorry, you have to be quarantined another 7 days." So that's what happens. But if the Kohen came back and after 7 days that discoloration or whatever was gone, and this person is cured of the tsarat, at this point, this person would need to go through a purification process in order to then eat of the kudshim, of holy foods, and going into the Beit HaMikdash. To do that, he goes through this 11-step process, which is what we're going through in this week's parsha. So, number one, he has to take one of two birds. Okay, he takes two birds. One of them is slaughtered. Its blood is then drained into a natural spring. This is all near the Beit HaMikdash or near the Mishkan. And how much blood should you spill? As much as is finally visible in the spring of water. So it has to be visible. He has to see this blood. There's symbolism to this, by the way. Not sure if we'll have a chance to get into it. Number two, someone, and this is somebody else, digs and buries that bird, digs a hole and buries that bird in the presence of this Metzora. Number three, he takes some cedar wood, a cubit long, as wide as a bedpost. He also takes some hyssop. It has to be no less than also a tefach, a handbreadth, long, and some crimson dyed wood, weighing 1 shekel. So that's the amount of a silver coin. And then he takes all these things, and then all three of these items are taken along with the remaining live bird. Remember, there was one bird that was slaughtered, and there's one bird that's not slaughtered. The hyssop and cedar are tied with strands of that crimson wool, and then around that bundle the tips of the wings and tail of the live bird are also tied. And then all four of these things, the crimson, the hyssop, and everything, the wool, and the bird are all dipped into the vessel that has the blood of the previous bird in it. Okay? All of that's dipped into that. Then the Kohen then sprinkles the blood 7 times on the Metzora's hand and sends away the bird. When throwing the bird, it's sort of like tossing the bird away, the Kohen has to be standing in a city, and the bird is thrown towards the wall, that is away from the city, towards the field. Okay? Then the Metzora is not done yet. Then he goes and gets a haircut. The Kohen himself has to shave the Metzora with a straight razor and shaves off all visible hair. That's like the eyebrows, the head, everything. Like the beard, everything is shaved for the Metzora.
Grow back?
I'm sorry?
Did the hair ever grow back on the eyebrows? I always wondered about that. Is that so strange?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've heard that if you shave your eyebrows, the hair does not grow back. I don't know.
And I don't mean to be like,
it could be that this is permanent. I don't know.
right. Is that including the nose hairs? Not that I'm sorry to be
all
like,
visible hairs.
Okay, so not really.
Not really, no, unless they're visible. Okay. The Metzora then immerses himself and his clothing in a mikvah. He takes his clothes, he does his laundry in a mikvah together with he himself goes into the mikvah, or she. The Metzora then counts 7 days. He's not clean yet. Then he counts 7 days. From this point, counts 7 days. On the 7th day, the Metzora shaves himself again and goes in the mikvah with his clothes again. Not with his clothes, but he takes his clothes off. He puts himself and the clothes into the mikvah again after 7 days. And then on the next day, so this is the 7th day. On the next day, he goes to the mikvah himself, not with the clothes now. He doesn't shave anymore. But on the 8th day, he goes to the mikvah a 3rd time. That's counted 3 times already, right? Then there are a group of sacrifices. I'm not going to get into all the details. A chatat, an asham, and everything else, an ola. The Metzora then brings all of these to the Beit HaMikdash, or to the Mishkan before the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, so this is the whole process. This is what the Parsha talks about. This is involved, right? It's not a simple like, well, I had tzaraat and now I'm better, so I just I bring a couple of birds. No, there's more to it. There's quite a process, and hopefully, God willing, today when we look at the sources, we'll have a chance to see some of the symbolism. Now, to really understand some of this, we need to look at a Gemara. This is not a very well-known Gemara. It's quoted sometimes, but it should be quoted more often, as you'll see, because a lot of people are under the impression. Let's share the screen if I can. There we go. You guys see that? The source sheet?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So a lot of people are under the impression that you get tzaraat for Lashon Hara. And that's great, because that's partially true. That's one of several reasons why you could get tzaraat. That's right, several reasons. And they are not mentioned as often, unfortunately, and it's kind of a problem, because whenever people get to Tazria, Metzora, everybody starts talking about Lashon Hara. Not maybe, hopefully, God willing, they're not speaking Lashon Hara, but they're saying, that's what this parsha is about. It's about Lashon Hara, et cetera, et cetera. And that's partially true. I mean, obviously, if you stay away from Lashon Hara, you have a very good chance of not getting tzaraat, not having to go through this process, et cetera, et cetera. All of that's true. But that's not everything that's in the parsha. In other words, it's cute when we tell kids, don't speak Lashon Hara, you might get tzaraat. That's a very, it's cute. But that's not the only reason not to speak Lashon Hara. And as we know, when we speak Lashon Hara nowadays, we don't get tzaraat. Maybe we should, but we don't. And then we don't have to go through this process. It's not very relevant anymore. So that's not a great way to scare kids out of Lashon Hara. Instead, they should probably be taught the reasons why Lashon Hara is so bad. Meanwhile, we'll just look at the English here from Sefaria for the sources in the Gemara in Arachim, Tet Zayin Amud Aleph, that's 16a. The Gemara there in Arachim, that's towards the end of Shas, by the way, in case you're curious. It talks about all the different 7 things that can cause somebody to get tzarat. Malicious speech, that's lashon hara. Bloodshed, that means killing somebody. Didn't know that? You kill somebody, you can get tzarat, right? Taking an oath in vain. Forbidden sexual relations, for arrogance, for theft, and for stinginess. Those 7 things, those 7 reasons are reasons to get tzarat. And by the way, the Gemara, I have the source here in case you want to look it up. You can look it up at your free time, but it gives proof from different episodes in Tanakh to why each one of these 7 things that are mentioned are all connected to tzarat, one way or the other. Somebody gets tzarat for any one of these things. So, right? For example, sexual immorality, one of the reasons, one of the proofs for that, the proof that the Talmud brings is the fact that, as we remember, when Paro back in Egypt, back in the time of Avram, took Sarai, his family was punished in some way. And the rabbis here in Arachin are learning that way is a skin affliction, which is what it is. They were somehow afflicted. Maybe the orifices were closed off or whatever, and so that's a skin affliction. And so that was tzarat. So that's proof that tzarat happens for that. Okay. Anyway, now let's now that we know that what the Metzora has to do to get rid of tzarat, and now that we know some of the things that cause tzarat, some of the comments we'll see in today's class will, God willing, make a lot more sense. Okay, let's look. First of all, let's get into the 3rd pasuk in this week's parsha. By the way, almost all of this week's parsha is in chapter 14 of Vayikra. That's because, and there's like 50 something verses. All of them, again, the chapters and verses were not made by Jewish scholars. They were made by Gentile scholars. And as far as the Gentiles are concerned, all of this topic about tzarat, it's all just one chapter. It's all one topic, all right? Not the way we look at it, which is why we break it up into aliyahs, etc. But we're not going to get into all that right now. Let's look right now at a famous Khatam Sofer. You've probably heard this before, but it's worth repeating. And it has to do with this topic that we just mentioned. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So the verse says, "Vayatza hakohen el mechutz lamachane." So the priest goes out outside of the camp. And the Kohen, this is what the Kohen does the examination, because the Metzora, the person with tzarat, if he has tzarat, needs to go out of the camp. If he's still in the camp when he finds that out, it's kind of going to be a problem for the people in the camp. We don't want them to become tamei. We don't want them to become susceptible to whatever it is that he has. So therefore, this examination should happen outside the camp. Just a moment. Somebody wants to show off their muffler. Okay. All right. So great. So he goes outside the machane. Okay. The Kohen sees it. And he sees it, and he sees that this person who had leprosy or had tzarat is now being healed from the tzarat. Okay. And so the Khatam Sofer wants to know, and this is I couldn't find the Khatam Sofer inside. It might be in Torah Moshe, which I don't have. So I'm bringing the quote from Talalei Orot. So it says there, it brings this, and it asks the question: why does it say min hatzarua? In other words, why does it say the Kohen who heals him, or he has been healed? This leper, this person with leprosy or tzarat has been healed min hatzarua, from his tzarat. Well, what else is he going to be healed from? From a cold? Was his foot hurting? What else? What are we talking about? Of course, we're talking about tzarat. He was healed from tzarat. So these last 2 words seem extra, seem unnecessary. The Khatam Sofer wants to tell us why these are not extra words. Right? The Khatam Sofer, al shum ma Hosifa HaTorah Haktava Mina Tzarua. Why does the Torah have to conclude with Mina Tzarua, from his tzarat? Everybody understand the question so far? Not if you understand. Okay. Achein refuah ba lo mitzara rak la'acher she'asat shuva behetiv derachav. Because why? How is he getting healed from this tzarat? Remember, he could have still had it. It's not because Hashem decided, I'm too tired of this guy having tzarat already. Enough of that. No, he's getting healed from the tzarat because he deserves it. He's done teshuva. Olam imzot shuva zu lo ba lo mehit ororot libo umalato haruchnit ele ketotza miyisure hanega sheba Allah. It could be that he's only doing this teshuva because not because he actually feels sad about what he did wrong, not because of the sexual immorality, the bloodshed, whatever else he did to get this tzarat. Maybe he's doing this teshuva because he just doesn't want to have tzarat. It's simple. I don't want this illness. What do I have to do not to get this illness? To get this have this illness go away? Do teshuva. Okay, I'll hate, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry I did this. I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry I was stingy. All right, so that's what he's going to do. But that's not what Hashem wants. So that's lefichach. Therefore, v'hine nirpa nega tzarat min hatzarua al yedei she'asat teshuva lechathav. He really did the teshuva. He really did perform teshuva properly, and he really did try to improve himself. And that's what is causing this tzarat to go away. Amnam af al pisha teshuvato ba lo ketotza misuri hanega. Even though this teshuva came to him because he doesn't want to have this tzarat, nevertheless, mikol makom mitchapen. Even though his teshuva at least got started because he didn't want to have this tzarat affliction, nevertheless, it is a kapara. It works. Teshuva always works. Why? Because Hashem always wants our teshuva. It's a constant thing. He always wants us teshuva. K'mosh Amru Chazal, as the rabbi saying in the Gemara Brachot 5b, Arba Marod Nagayim Mizavach Kapara Haveh. So the signs of kapara are a cure. Imzot Aidain Kaparato Eina Shlema, even though we see that his kapara maybe is not a complete teshuva. He didn't really feel so sorry about what he did. Kevan Shelo Nit Ora L'Tshuva Ad Sheba Allah Hayisurim. Now remember, these afflictions, the skin condition has started to go away already, and he still doesn't regret the fact that he's doing teshuva. V'achein im amnam haya nohekach. If he's accustoming himself. He's becoming accustomed to being a good person. Then this works, and then that's what it means. That's why this extra word here, mina tzarua, he's saying that it is actually working to get him away from tzarat, not just the actual illness of tzarat, but all of the things that can cause it. These are all things he's getting further and further away from because he is being successful in his teshuva process. That's what it means. He's being healed. Min hatzarua, from tzarat.
Rabbi, what kind of teshuva could he do if he's outside the camp? Just davening?
Yeah, davening. Asking Hashem for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Doing whatever he can. If this were a modern day situation and he upset somebody, he should be making phone calls, sending emails, buying billboards, whatever it takes. All right. Let's skip a few verses to Tet, to 9. This is 14:9 in Vayikra. Now this is the 7th day, as we said before. This is 7 days after the Kohen already said that he's pure, and after he's been shaved in already 7 days earlier. Yigalach et kol sa'aro et rosho et zikano et gabot einav. So like his head hair, his beard, his eyebrows. Et kol sa'aro yigalech, and all of his hair is shaved off. This, of course, all the visible hair. V'chibes et begadav rachatz et b'saro b'mayim v'taher. He has to take off his clothes and launder them and himself in a mikvah, and then he is pure. So writes the Kli Yakar. Now this is why it was so important. This is why it was so important that we find out what all of these processes were, and also what the sins are that cause this. Writes the Kli Yakar in Prague about 400 years ago, or more, 500 years ago. So all of the shaving, what does it accomplish? Nuchal lomar shelakach prat gimel rashi averim elu lefi shehem kruvim al gimel rashi averot asher alehem bayim hanegayim. These three things that he's doing, again, shaving his head, shaving his beard, and shaving his eyebrows, all connect to the three main things that cause tzarat that we learned about. We learned about the seven, but there's really three that are the main culprits of tzarat. And the other four, they're not so major, or I mean, obviously they are, but let's see how this works. So first of all, et rosho, he shaves his head. Why? L'chaper al gasut haruach, harotze liyot lerosh chol davar kamashakatuv ayin ba ayan ki gabahu benot zion chule. So he shaves his head because the head is the symbol of haughtiness. We raise our heads when we're proud, right? We bow our heads when we're humble. This person needed to be humbled. Okay, so right, haughtiness is one of the seven things that can cause tzarat. So to cure him of his haughtiness, he has the ability to shave his head, and that is part of the curing process that he needs to not have tzarat anymore.
Okay? What about a married woman who gets tzarat?
She has to shave her head.
Like, who shaves it though?
I don't know, the Kohen, the Rebbetzin, I don't know.
The Kohen shaves her head when it's supposed to be covered?
Oh, he would uncover it and shave it, yes.
So he's allowed to see it.
I would imagine. Yeah, I you know what? Let me look that up. I'm sure it's in the Mishnah in the Gaim or thereabouts.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Mistama, I mean, I would imagine that the process isn't different, unless you say that maybe because the hair isn't visible there, so maybe she doesn't have to do that. That makes also sense, right? All right. So next, at Zikno, he shaves his beard. Haim has orim saviv lefiv. Where is the beard? These are hairs that cover the mouth. L'chaper al pi hamedaber b'lashon hara. Right? So lashon hara, we know, is one of the reasons to get tzarat. Not the only reason, as we just spent some time learning, but it is one of the major reasons to get tzarat. And to get kapara for the sin that caused the tzarat, he shaves the beard that's around the mouth. Make sense? Good. And last but not least, the eyebrows, right? Gabot einav lechaper al tzarot ha'ayin. We said that one of the things that cause tzarat is stinginess, or really envy and looking down at people, or thinking that you're better than others. All of these things, by the way, this is actually connected to all the other sins. I didn't want to really get into it, but it's one of the things that causes people to create bloodshed, to kill others, is because they think they're better. They want somebody else's life or whatever it is. So that's the problem. That's a huge problem, and that is part of the kapara for that. I also brought the Rambam in the end of Hilchot Mikvaot, very, very end of Hilchot Mikvaot, chapter 11, 12th halacha, where he points out something that I just want to make this very clear. Davar barur. The matter is clear, v'galoi, and revealed. Shehatuma'ot v'hataharot gzerat hakadufei. All of this tumma tahara, it's not mystical, it's not magical, it's all from the Torah. But not only that, it's not simple either. It's not just dirt we're cleaning off. It's not something that a person will ever be able to really fully understand and wrap their minds around. And by the way, this is somebody who's written a commentary on the Mishnah, right? The Rambam. It's in the category of chukim, of chok, of unexplained Torah. This tuma isn't some mud or dirt that you're trying to get rid of. That you're going to be able to clean off with water. He wants you to make sure that you know that when you go in the mikvah, you're not taking a bath, right? You're not just like your body is becoming clean when you go to the mikvah, so too your tumah is going away when you go to the mikvah. That's not how it works. In fact, there's all kinds of halachot about washing and stuff before or after the mikvah, so that you shouldn't think that going to the mikvah is your cleaning process, your physical cleansing process. So that's a very important idea. This laundering clothing is not laundering clothing, right? This going to the mikvah isn't just washing your body. Yeah, it has to be something more mystical, something more, something deeper than that. In fact, he says here, very important fact that a lot of people don't consider. What he should do, or she should do, when she's going to the mikvah, or he's going to the mikvah, is to have in his heart, have in his mind, have kavanah, have intent that this is going to get rid of the tumah. Kevan shehich skim belibo lifrosh ma'otan ha'etzot v'hevi nafsho b'mei hadat tahor. You should go in with clear thoughts, etc., etc. And basically, he says that if you do not have kavanah, if you don't have intent, when you're going to the mikvah to become cleansed, you're not cleansed. This is very different from laundry, right? Or taking a bath. Whether you had kavanah to take a bath or didn't have kavanah to take a bath, whether you woke up and you're already all soaped inside of a bathtub somehow, it doesn't matter what your intent was, right? It doesn't matter if somebody else had intent for you to be clean. You're clean. That's not true for a mikvah. A mikvah doesn't work if you don't have intention for it to work. It doesn't work unless you have intention for it to work. Very important Rambam right there. So that's just some of the symbolism and some of the intent of the verses. Next question comes from this forno. It says, like we said before, the Metzora brings some sacrifices. One of them is the asham. Okay, right? It says asham, right? So as like the English word ashamed. Interestingly related, but not exactly the way you think. Anyway, not for now. He's supposed to also bring vetlog hashemen. He's supposed to bring a log. That's a measurement of oil. And all of these are going to be part of this asham, an elevation offering to Hashem. Now, the question is, why does he bring this asham? Now, what's even the question? What's the problem with bringing an asham? So an asham is a very specific sacrifice. It's usually brought, according to Sforno. Let's look at it inside in this Sforno. Kvar nitba'er ha'inyin ha'ashamhu al bekodesh. The reason to bring an asham in general, this what's usually translated as a guilt offering, is for me'ilah. Now, what's me'ilah? Me'ilah is the use of holy things for non-holy purposes, which is not what this guy did. He didn't bring. He didn't go and steal the menorah from the Beit Hamikdash and go use it to light a room or something, right? That's not what happened here. How is this me'ilah? How's an asham going to help? So he says, Me'il b'mikdash kemo hachatat al chiyuv karet kvar amru shehatzarat hi al lashon hara. So we know that one of the reasons for tzarat is lashon hara. Al gasat ruach, as we mentioned, as haughtiness. What's it called? How they usually translate this? Gasat ruach is usually translated as avarice, envy. Right, that's good enough. Shishnehem me'ila bekodesh, lashon hara and avarice or envy are a way of performing me'ila. How so? Tzarat, as he's going to say, ki amnam lashon hara ikru b'seiter. The point when you say lashon hara, you don't usually say it out loud for everybody to hear. You say lashon hara in secret. K'ma'amek me'ashem hastir eitza. And so he quotes a pasuk in no, not a pasuk. Basically a pasuk. He's paraphrasing from Yeshayahu 29:15. Somebody who seeks deeply to hide advice from Hashem, right? So obviously you think Hashem is not listening, right? If you're going to say your lashon hara, Hashem is not here. I can say whatever I want. Nobody's listening, right? So that's the problem. That's me'ila. You're misappropriating the holiness of Hashem. He's there, and you're acting like he's not. And you're speaking lashon hara. Never mind that you're speaking lashon hara against another Jew, which is also a holy thing. A Jew is a holy vessel. It holds the neshama. Every Jew. Ke'amram bebrachot over avera beseter ki'ilu dochek raglei shchina. Somebody who performs a sin in private, it's as if they're kicking out the legs of the shchina, as if the shchina is not there. And on haughtiness, nemar gabaina v'racham levav oto lo ochel. It says, this person's stealing what I have. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu ze noheg, ze gona malvushe. It's this person's stealing my clothing. Ein ani v'hu yicholim la'amod ba'olam echad. It's as if I'm not here and this person's is walking through the world all on their own. So in other words, all of these things are me'ila in a way because they're both anything. Wow. Okay. Anything that causes tzarat is a kind of thing where you're basically ignoring Hashem's presence in the world. And that is me'ila. That is misappropriating a sacred thing. We're ignoring Hashem and his ownership of the world. So that is the reason why an asham works for a Metzora. That's why the Metzora brings it. Questions about that? All right, let's keep going. The next thing, here we go. Pasuk Yudalid, 14:14. V'lakacha kohen midam ha'asham. He takes some of the blood of this guilt offering. V'natan ha'kohen al tenuch ozen mitaher ha'yemenit v'albohen yado ha'yemenit v'albohen raglo ha'yemenit. And he puts it on the right ear of the person being of this person who's the Metzora, on the thumb of the right hand, on the big toe of the right foot. So all on the right side. So what's the symbolism here? So writes Rav Samson Rafal Hirsch. Lakach HaKohen, the Kohen takes. This is the Kabbalah. This isn't Kabbalah like you're thinking Kabbalah, the book or the topic. This is Kabbalah, meaning the Hebrew word Kabbalah means the taking of something, to be makabel, to accept or to take. or to receive. That's a good word for it. All right. This is the Kabbalah, reception of the blood. Here, a double Kabbalah is performed. First, the reception of the blood in a kli, in a vessel for the altar. This resembles the Kabbalah that is performed on all other offerings. Every offering has a Kabbalah aspect where blood has to be taken in a vessel and brought to the Mizbeach and sprinkled there, etc. It is performed by a Kohen who conveys the blood to the altar to dash upon it the Shtei Matanot Shehem Arba, the two sprinklings that are four, right? It's supposed to be all around the altar, and it's two catty corners of the altar, and that way we consider as if all four sides are sprinkled upon. The second Kabbalah is for the application to the body of the Metzora, right? This blood is used for the right earlobe, the right thumb, etc., etc. According to the Kabbalah according to the stuff of the Kabbalah for the Mizbeach is to be done first. Now, here's the point. Here's what I wanted you to focus on. In these respects, the Kabbalot and the Matanot prescribed here differ apparently from those that were prescribed in the case of the El HaMeluim, which is the inauguration sacrifices of the Kohen, which is very similar to this, but there's some differences as you're about to see. For there, only one Kabbalah was performed in a kli, in a vessel, and the matanot on the ear, the hand, and the foot preceded the matanot al mizbeach, the sprinklings on the mizbeach. In our case, the separate Kabbalot and the reversed order of the matanot signify the following. Here's the symbolism: the person nullified himself through shechita. So that's what shechita means. When you shecht an animal, you're saying, "This is not. I'm not here anymore." Just like this animal is no longer here, this animal is dead. I am in a sense dead. I'm not here. And reawaken to seek a nobler life. A nobler life. This is a possibility now. He realizes he can do this, or she can do this. Now he must conduct his life in two separate directions, two directions that complement each other. Having nullified his egocentric being, he belongs to the sanctuary. He's now a holy thing. He belongs to the sanctuary. And to the forces striving upward to the height of the altar. At the same time, he reawakens to a new priest-like life in his intellect, actions, and endeavors, and the Kohen, clad in garments of the sanctuary, exemplifies before him such a life. Indeed, when a person uplifts himself to God and to his purposes, he attains also a lofty life of truth. We become better people, our lives become improved, and everything around us becomes holier. Okay, we're going to skip now to verse 21, chapter 14, verse 21. And we know not everybody had a lot of money. Not everybody could afford all the sacrifices that are being required by the Torah here. So the Torah says, Im dalhu, if he's poor, he's not able to afford this one sheep, right? This one male lamb, I mean. Asham litnufa lechaper alav isaron solid echad balul b'shemen lemincha v'log shemen. So instead, he should bring, if he's too poor to afford all the things he needs to bring, he should bring one male lamb for a guilt offering to be elevated to 1/10 of a measure of flour and oil mixed in for meal offering, and a log of oil. All right, so these are things that if he can afford, he should bring that. There are other options. We're not going to get into that right now. But what's interesting is that there's a Gemara in Yoma. There's a Gemara in Yoma that says, one second. All right. It says that obviously a poor person, Metzora ani hevi karban ashir yatsa, if this poor Metzora still wants to bring a rich man's offering, he can do that. But yatsa, and he's fulfilled his obligation. Asher shehevi karban ani, but a rich man who can afford better, but doesn't, and brings a poor man's offering, lo yatsa, he does not fulfill his obligation. The Gemara there learns out this is different than other sacrifices where, in principle, a rich man should not bring a poor man's offering. But if he does, he's fulfilled his obligation. Chick-chack, he's done. Here, for some reason, that's not the case. With regard to this particular offering for a Metzora, it doesn't help if he brings the offering of a poor man. Why not? It's not fair. What's going on here? So, says the Meshech Chochmah. Meshech Chochmah writes, you write something. See if I can find it. There you go. All right. Okay. So, as we know, he quotes the Gemara in Arachin, as that we quoted before, that there are 7 things that cause the tzarat. Actually, he says it's Yud Zayin. Interesting. Anyway, it's Tet Zayin. It's the next page, previous page. It's either way. So he says, why doesn't a poor man's offering work for a rich man here? Ordinarily it does, because he's bringing an offering. He's doing something. What about here? So remember one of the reasons why you could get tzarat? Hope you do remember. We learned it a few minutes ago. So it says, Zayin Devarim Negayim Boim Al Tzarot Ha'ayin. Stinginess. Stinginess is one of the reasons to get tzarat. This person was stingy, and now he wants to not have tzarat anymore. Now he wants to bring an offering. He wants to bring a poor man's offering. He's a rich man and can afford better. He's still being stingy. That means he didn't do teshuvah. He's not done. What's he doing bringing a poor man's offering? That's why it doesn't work. He's not yotze. He's not able to get this kapara until he brings a rich man's offering, if he is indeed a rich man. So again, this fits in beautifully with everything we're saying. So there's a reason for the ceremony, right? There's a kapara aspect to all of this. If there's anything you go away with at the end of the class, we have another just under 10 more minutes, and we have some more Torah to learn, God willing. But if there's anything you go away with at the end of the class, I know there's the rule of thumb, and I hate that phrase for obvious reasons. But the old adage is that people remember the first thing you teach them in a class and the last thing you teach them in a class. Everything in between is sort of like a haze. So if there's anything you go away with, this is why we started with this. There's a process, and the process is supposed to lead to teshuvah. And we've had all kinds of different commentaries explaining how the different parts, the asham or the shaving or the bird. We didn't really talk much about the birds this year. You'll have to look at last year's class for that. But all of these things have symbolic meaning and some sort of resonance that can apply even to us. And here you have a confluence of all of these things. I don't have a better word for it. It's a merging of everything. Right? The Gemara in Yoma that talks about why you get tzarat. The Torah portion here that talks about all of the things you need to do to get rid of the tzarat. And they all have to fit together. And that's why there's another Gemara totally elsewhere in Yuma that's talking about completely different things, all kinds of sacrifices where a rich man can bring a poor man's offering. But here's an exception. And the exception is learned out from the word zot, whatever. It doesn't matter how the Gemara learns it out. For our purposes, we need to know why. Why doesn't it work? You know why it doesn't work? Because it's against the whole thing. The whole point of this is to get a kapara. The whole point of this is for it to have meaning. And if he decided he doesn't want to have tzarat anymore, and he still brings a korban that he should not have brought, he brings a poor man's offering because he's too cheap. He doesn't want to bring the korban he's supposed to bring. So if he's still cheap, he hasn't learned his lesson. Cheap. Maybe that's why they bring birds. Anyway, that was a joke. They seeing if you're awake. All right. Our last source of the day, God willing, our last topic for the day. This is a very, very famous idea you've probably heard before. It says in the Pasuk, chapter 14, still verse 34. We're not going to really talk much about Zava, Nida. We're not really going to talk about that in today's class. Unless we do. And that probably, you know what? Maybe we will. Let's see how fast we can go through this. So chapter 14, verse 34 says, Kitavo ala Eretz Canaan. When you go into Eretz Canaan, Asher ani noten lachem, that I'm going to give you the achuza as a possession. V'natati nega tzarad b'bayit. I'm going to put a tzarad into the walls of your house, Eretz achuzatchem, in the land of your possession. Now, obviously, as we've mentioned last week, tzarad does not affect us. We do not get tzarad outside of Israel. Right? We definitely don't get the tzarad of the houses outside of Israel. So in a sense, this is a positive thing that you will have houses in Israel and there will be tzarad. There's sort of a positive that will be at least in Israel. We'll be on such a holy level that we'll be able to get even tzarad there. Little reminders of Tuma and Tahara and that Hashem watches over us. Beautiful things. But Rashi says something different. It says, Besora hi lahem shanegayim bayim alehem. He's telling them that they're going to get these afflictions on their houses. Lefi shehit mitu amurayim amurim mat moniot shel zahav bekirot batehen kol arbaim shana yu Yisrael b'midbar. So all these 40 years that the Jews were in the desert, Amorites, Amorim, they hid gold into the walls of their houses, knowing that the Jews would come and attack and fight, and so they thought eventually they'd win and come back and get their gold. Meanwhile, the Jews would not be able to benefit from these battles. That's what they thought. Well, Yidei Hanega, no Teitz Habayit, because of this Nega Tzarash, you're going to be breaking down the walls of your house. You'll find the gold. Mazel tov, you're rich. Now you can help buy the shul building. All right, Umotzan, and then they'll find this gold. Baruch Hashem. So it sounds like a positive thing. So Rav Moshe Feinstein in Darash Moshe on this verse wants to know how this is a positive thing. Obviously, he quotes Rashi, Lefi Masha Parshu Rash Le'el Mechazal. This is a Besora Tova, this is good news, etc., etc. Al Kain, Im Kain, if so, Temua, Lechora, Masha Tzarich Lomar Rak Kinega, Mishum Delo Lomar Davara. This is why is he getting Tzarat? Because he did something wrong. He did a bad thing, one of the 7 bad things we talked about. Ha'adarabba, Machachahu, this he should be punished. Alzeh, and now he's happy? We're gladdening him. You lucky guy, you got tzarad and gold. Yay! That's so tzarach lomar dehine mefurash. It's clear. He says this is very important. A lot of people don't understand this. This is a very common question. This answer is so clear. This is typical Rav Moshe answer. Dehine mefurash the tzarach litein ani mehatov umechobar mikra shekol chala. Halev Tirosh. The fact is mitzad zeh pashut demisha notein rak machmad shehu atzle eno chashuv nimsha she'eno notein. Oops, I think I cut off the rest of this. I'll have to add it later on. I have it just not on me right now. The point is that obviously this rich person is this person with Sarat is getting this reward together with a punishment. That's not to say other people don't get the reward. Other people also got the gold, except they got the gold in an easier way. Obviously, they had to expand their house to build a baby room or a bubby suite or a playroom or an indoor pool or whatever it is they had to build. They had to build onto their house, and when they built onto their house, they broke down the walls and found the gold. Great, gold exactly when you need it when you're doing a building project. Instead of this guy who gets the gold, true, yay, he has gold, but he gets it in an unpleasant way. His house is about to fall apart, and also he's got tzarah, so everybody knows he's sinned. Also, they know he's stingy. We have other chazal we've learned in previous years about how all of his items are taken out of the house, and everybody says, "Hey, wait a minute! I remember asking you for a rake, and you said you didn't have one. What's that over there?" What you have a Wii? You told me you were gonna you didn't have a Wii to play. I wanted to come over to your house and play video games with you, and you didn't want to have me. And you said you came up with all kinds of excuses, and you had a video game after all. Everything else. You have that set of Shas? I needed that. I told you, and I had to go and buy one myself, and I couldn't afford it. Look at that, and all because you were too stingy to share. All right, so all of these things fall on this person all at once. So yes, he's got gold, but now he's probably going to end up having to use this gold to appease his friends, who he's been upsetting all along by being such a stingy, mean person. All right. Just real quick, I know the hour is getting late. I know we started a little bit late too, but I just want to mention a beautiful, beautiful chazal. It's connected to, obviously it's in this parsha, and it's in the other section of the parsha that we don't really talk about very much. Right? Everybody talks, like I said, always about lashon hara and houses, etc., the birds and the ceremony. Let's talk about the uncomfortable topics for a moment, okay? Let's talk about these other tumas, okay? So chapter 15, verse 19 says, "Ha'isha ki tieh zava dam," when she has this zava affliction, let's call it gonorrhea for lack of a better word, and there's blood involved or some sort of other liquid. Yeah, zova. She bivsara. She becomes this zova. Shivat yamin for 7 days. Tiyeh mididata. She's like a nida for 7 days. Kol nagea ba yitma ad ha'erev. And anybody who touches her becomes tamei also until evening. Then has to go to the mikvah, etc. Cannot eat kachim. The Gemara in Pesachim tells us, Pesachim 90b, that Tanya Yachol Tiyeh Tevel Yom. You might have thought that this woman who's menstruating or had a baby or has the ziva can go to the mikvah while it is still day. Talmud Lomar Shivat Yamim Tiyeh Benidata. She has to wait 7 days, and only then Benidata Kol Shiva. She's a nida for all of these 7. It's her Tiyeh Nidata with a mapik hey, means it's her nida. Her status is still there even on the 7th day. Hayaleted itakash benida. So she's still a nida, and she then obviously still needs to go to the mikvah. We're going to skip this Rav Hirsch. I don't have it here anyway. He basically quotes this Gemara in Pesachim almost verbatim. But then I want to share with you a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, the Torah is written in code, right? And one of the famous codes is something called Gematria. Gematria means every single letter has a numerical value, just like Roman numerals. So to the Torah, Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, etc., etc. So points out the Chomat Anoch, which is one of the books of the Chidah. Points out Gematria v'ad shetava b'mayim. This verse that we have in our this phrase that we have in our verse. Maybe it's a different verse. Oops. All right. Either way, find that later on. No, sorry. What am I saying? Tiyeh benidata, that phrase. Tiyeh benid, she's still in her state of nida, that the Gemara learns out from there that she needs to go to the mikvah. It's the gematria of ad shetava b'mayim, until she goes into water. So the very lesson that the Gemara learns out from these words is the gematria of these words. You see that? That's how it works. The Gemara darish la mikra. So he says the Gemara learns it out from from how the verse is written out. But you can see the same lesson in the gematria. It's one of the beautiful things about how the Torah is written, and that one of the proofs that we like to have sometimes. The Torah is not just a book written by somebody somewhere, whatever. I had a manager at my restaurant recently asked me. He comes up to me and says, I know you guys aren't allowed to eat pig, but is it possible that whoever wrote that just never tried pig and just doesn't know how good it is? So I said, this is a long conversation. but let me just make it clear to you that it's the Jewish idea that this verse in the Torah was not written by a person; it was written by God. And for whatever reason, God doesn't want us to eat certain foods, and pig isn't the only one of them, by the way. And it's not because it doesn't taste good. It might taste great, doesn't matter. It's because for whatever reason it's not something he wants us to eat. Maybe it's because he doesn't want us to act like them, as the Rambam says, or one of the other reasons that are given by the many different commentaries. Anyway, the point is the Torah is a beautiful vessel. Let's take advantage of these days of Chol HaMoed. We're not going to have a Parsha class next week. As you know, it's there's no Parsha. We're going to be reading the readings for Pesach next Shabbos. So there's not going to be and also we need time to clean and do other things, I'm sure. Also, as I've mentioned in other classes, I'm going to say goodbye to the Facebook group right now.